over 9%. Gas is still almost double than that when Biden took office. And now China is lobbing missiles over Taiwan. So are you better off than you were 4 years ago? A la Ronald Reagan. Here to help me answer that question, Texas Congressman and member of the House Oversight and Financial Committees, Congressman Pete Sessions. Sir, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Carl. How are you today?
Well, I'm pretty good, just not as good in the economy as I was 4 years ago. So let's start with the Inflation Reduction Act, okay? This doesn't reduce inflation. It prints $700 billion plus more dollars at a significantly higher interest rate, mind you, than most of our current debt. I mean, what could possibly go wrong here?
Well, this is once again a plan where they're trying to simply ruin the American economy. They're trying to embed the federal government, big bloated government. This bill would add 85,000 new IRS agents. The reason why is the Treasury Union is the largest union in the federal government. They want to bog down every single piece part of government. This is what Democrats do. Democrats not only come and add expensive cost to the taxpayer and to our debt, but what they do in reality is burden us with huge bureaucracies that will really have a real story as we move forward. To add 85,000 new IRS agents is not going to be a positive thing for business nor for individuals.
Yeah, that's interesting, Congressman. The other thing, too, is like we just had somebody in office. I'm old enough to remember his name rhymed with Trump. And he made his focus on getting rid of regulation, making things simpler for businesses to file taxes. They want to make your taxes more complicated. And on top of that, add 89 or 85,000, whatever it is, agents, making that bigger than like the Pentagon, all these other groups, the FBI combined. Why don't they just make it simpler to do our taxes?
Bottom line for the Democrats is to add big government. For every time there's a Republican who comes into office, and by the way, President Trump just 2 years ago had a superior economy to what we have today. We need to understand this constant struggle between government and freedom, government and the free enterprise system. This expensive new bill is designed exactly to do what Joe Manchin and Senator Kirsten Gillibrand did not want to do until they've now given in. And that is to empower government to regulate even more the industry of the energy industry. Mm-hmm. They're already putting planes and drones up over these petroleum platforms to find out what O2 they put out. I mean, we have failed to understand that you have to have a garbage dump because we use a lot. You have to understand that we produce energy and it's consolidated in one area to then make it around to our consumers. They are trying everything they can do to kill the goose that lays the golden egg, and that is called the free enterprise system.
You bring up an interesting point there, Congressman, and you make the point that, Democrats' view is that the people exist to serve the government, while the Republicans' view is the government exists to serve the people. I mean, it's diametrically opposed here. And you see that in the self-servingness of like Nancy Pelosi. Her husband bought all these chip stocks, okay? It goes up a massive amount. He buys it right before the day that they pass this CHIPS Act. Then she goes to Taiwan, the #1 chip producer in the world, and now China is lobbing missiles over Taiwan. I mean, what kind of stability is the Democrats providing here?
Well, in fact, it is not stability. We need to be honest about this. When President Trump was in office, he showed the very best of America. He showed the very best of the world. And other countries stayed in their own lanes and they did their own things. But let's not mix this up. The Democratic Party is full of people who are all the way to the left, AOC. They do not want jobs in America. They don't want corporate jobs. They want the federal government to regulate every single part of our lives. And so that is what they're getting. And they will be held accountable this November, because I will tell you, it is their policies that have made friends with inflation that have caused not only the huge rise in not just inflation, but people not going to work. Of the trillions of dollars that have been put out by the federal government, none of it was designed to empower people to go to work. It was to stay at home. And so this is where they're trying to now have what they consider to be great policy, but all it is adding what will be a huge legacy of theirs to build government.
Yeah, there was another man who wisely once said, if it moves, tax it. If it can't move, regulate it. And if it stops moving, subsidize it. So that is the federal government under Democrats. Congressman, we really appreciate you being here today. Thank you very much.
You bet. Good morning.
All right. Folks, let's bring back in filmmaker, content creator at Fog City Midge, Maggie McCarthy, and with us again, a conservative commentator and producer and screenwriter, Chad Jackson. All right, guys, let's get to this. All right, we got them there? No, they're not in. Okay. Oh, okay. Let's bring these folks in. So Democratic mayors across the country are starting to wake up to the crisis on the border here. I gotta say, Maggie, we've seen this time and time again. Mayor DC Mayor Bowser in 2016 called her city a sanctuary city. But now that busloads of illegals are coming in and showing up, she's like, this is a humanitarian crisis. We've got 5,000, which is like a small fraction of what they're dealing with down in Texas. What do you make of it, Maggie?
I mean, isn't it ironic that now, after all this time, that we've been sort of crying from the rooftops about how this is so horrible, what's going on at in our border towns and in our border states. But now all of a sudden, when it comes to their front door, all of a sudden these Democrats are all up in arms about it. So, I mean, on the one hand, it's nice that they're finally actually recognizing that we have a massive problem with illegal immigration in this country and that it's simply unsustainable. So I guess the silver lining here is that Democrats are finally waking up and that hopefully they do something about it. But I mean, it's hard to really imagine that, though, considering the fact that I think that Democrats have sort of been incentivizing illegal immigration for a long time now. So this might just be an attempt to kind of pander to their, to voters as the midterms are coming up, because people are waking up and realizing that this is a big problem. And Democrats see that, too.
Not only that, the D.C. mayor now said this needs to be a federal issue. So she went back on that decision. Yeah. Chad, do you think that they'll start to listen to messaging and maybe side with governors like Abbott in Texas who are calling this a crisis now that they see it at their own home?
No, that's certainly my hope, but I don't think it's going to happen if I'm being realistic. It seems like they'll just try to find a way to deflect from their being wrong on this issue. From the very beginning. It's always interesting to me how liberals, they like to be virtuous from afar. In other words, they like to pass legislation and push for policies that are detrimental, and they're doing it in the name of virtue and progressiveness. But whenever the issue comes to their front door, it's interesting to see them not knowing what to do with themselves.
Yeah. It's interesting, obviously, that we had CPAC this weekend. And this is a new poll, okay? The CPAC does the straw poll every year for who they'd like to see as their presidential nominee. And the straw poll goes to, boom, Donald J. Trump, 69% of ballots cast for him, followed by DeSantis receiving only 24%. So, Midge, my question here, and keep in mind, the last CPAC straw poll put Trump at like 59% and DeSantis in the 30s. So I love Ron DeSantis, okay? But he went down 10 points. Trump went up 10 points. What do you make of this, Mags?
That's a little surprising to me, actually. But I would have to kind of just wonder, because you are polling the most hardened, committed conservatives in the country, people that are attending CPAC. Because from what I've been seeing, I think a lot of people are kind of, I think for me, what I've seen is that there are many people that are waking up to many of the problems with Donald Trump, and they kind of want new and fresh leadership. The reality is that I think he's going to be 78 years old in 2024. And I think that people are saying, hey, maybe there are some better options, maybe someone maybe a little bit younger, a little fresher, newer ideas, because the facts remain that after I went to the last CPAC in 2021, many people were very discouraged about Donald Trump and some of the failures of his presidency, especially his handling of coronavirus, Operation Warp Speed, and just sort of blowing out our budget with $7 trillion of spending, which is not a very conservative thing to do. So, there's many issues there. And I think, to me, when I speak to conservatives, people are excited about someone new, whether it's Ron DeSantis or someone else. So, frankly, I'm actually a little bit surprised by that poll, personally.
That's very interesting, Maggie. And one of the things that Carl mentioned was how his numbers actually went up. And it is CPAC, but it also goes to show where the Republican support is. But then looking at who would primary him or who would go up against former President Donald Trump, Chad, who do you think would be a contender here if DeSantis is not polling as strongly as someone might have thought?
I can't think of anybody other than Ron DeSantis in terms of someone who has demonstrated true conservative values. Ron DeSantis isn't conservative enough in my book. Maybe Carl ought to run.
You don't want that.
I think Larry Elder looks like he's vying to do something big. So perhaps we'll see him run in 2024. He's somebody who's a friend of mine, and I would agree with him on many of the policies that he stands for. So it'll be an interesting race in 2024. I'm anxious to see what happens.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up, because Larry Elder, I don't know him very well, but he is an enormously articulate person when it comes to these issues, and he has made major strides in the media, especially look, the California recall, he was a phenomenal contender for that. If he was a VP ticket and for Trump, woohoo, that would be something else.
Hey, maybe Trump is listening right now. There's a suggestion.
Just say. I mean, look, if Ron DeSantis would be a phenomenal VP too. But if Ron wants to stay down in Florida a little bit longer, then maybe make his debut for the White House in 28, and he picked Larry Elder, man, I would bells and whistles for that one.
But Maggie, you have a point about President Trump's age as well. And that's a concern with our current president, with President Biden. But we do want to talk about something else here, because The View adding to Republicans to its lineup.
Republicans.
Exactly. ABC has officially named former Trump White House Communications Director Alyssa Farah Griffin and Republican strategist Ana Navarro as permanent co-host of The View. The View is constantly making headlines, constantly causing controversy. Maggie, what do you think of their new choice to add these two, as Carl put in quotation marks, Republicans to their lineup?
Well, I think that's exactly what they are. These are people who are going to basically give you the Liz Cheney, McCain Republican agenda. That's what they're set up to do. It would be nice to see actual dialogue on a show like that. It would be nice to see actual real constitutional conservatives represented on that panel, but they're never going to allow that. So what they have is soft McCain Democrat Republicans sitting up there playing theater, because that's really what this is. And you've got a show filled with some of the most vile leftists and, quote unquote Republicans that are set up there to just sort of, try to make the show look a little diverse in thought when it's really not whatsoever. So, I mean, frankly, it's sad. And my message to The View would be, why don't you actually reach out to a real conservative? That would be something exciting to see.
Yeah, well, I would love to see them have a conversation without the insults and without the fighting.
Yeah. I got to cover this, because my home state of Connecticut, there's a primary on Tuesday, and Leora Levy just got Trump's endorsement for the U.S. Senate to run against Dick Blumenthal. Trump endorsing in Connecticut? Why? Is this in play, Chad?
It's interesting to see. I mean, I forget what the number was, but I think for most of the individuals who Trump have endorsed, they've ended up winning. And it's just a matter of, from what I understand, his team basically looking at the polls and seeing who's the most likely to win, so he can take credit for having endorsed these people. So it's just interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, it was done on a phone call to a RTC group, to a town Republican Party group, and the headlines from the Democrats were the disease of Donald Trump and everything like that.
Right.
But Connecticut we're the only state in the union with all congressmen, both senators, the governorship, majority in the House, majority in the Senate, all blue. So if he's playing in Connecticut, maybe he sees something I don't. I mean, that would be to be able
That's
to.
a race to watch to see what kind of impact it does have, because based off of the conversation all four of us are having right now when it comes to CPAC and how he polled, and then also watching other races like in Arizona where Carrie Lake took that after being endorsed by former President Donald Trump. We'll have to watch this one and see what happens.
I will be following that one on Tuesday. And people believe that we're getting a good gas price, and even finding a negative comparing to killing a terrorist. They also changed the name of a recession to whatever fits their narrative.
For more on this, we're going to welcome in managing editor at Newsbuster, Curtis Houck. Curtis, good morning.
Good to be with you guys.
All right, Curtis, I've been looking forward to this. Is a new style of segment here. If you can see, I'm sitting back a little bit more because, look, it's funny. Now, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre says gas prices are going down, but not really too much. Watch.
Today about gas prices.
Because it's gone down?
It's still $1.72 higher than when he took office.
It has come down in a way that we haven't seen its trajectory coming down in over a decade.
Yeah, Curtis, what do you think about this word salad?
Yeah, Karine Jean-Pierre makes Jen Psaki seem totally cogent, and she occasionally makes Joe Biden seem like a Rhodes Scholar. But, you know, yeah, later in that exchange, she was talking about it going down, and, you know, I would think, teachers and welders and all these people you really enjoy the $11 difference. And Peter Doocy then replied, people are celebrating that, you know, would be saying that it's a relief that gas is still $4.11. And she really didn't know what to say to that because it's not right in front of her on her sheet of paper that she can read from while still stumbling over. She's the ultimate Michael Scott. Sometimes I start a sentence and I can't find it, and I hope to find it along the way.
That's a pretty good reference right there. I wasn't expecting that one. But yeah, you have a great point. I mean, they're celebrating what? That number still being higher. And just because it came down from $5 doesn't really mean it's that much better here. Also, John Kirby announcing Biden has worked the whole time he was COVID positive.
Not a lot of free time up there in the residence this week.
He doesn't have free time.
Is there a reason he can't just pick up the phone and call?
He's been working all the way through his illness, quite frankly, Peter. So that's a little bit insulting.
You know, as another workaholic, I get it. I like to work too. I very rarely ever take sick days, but would it be the worst thing for our president to maybe take some rest here?
Yeah, President Trump definitely did when he was at Walter Reed in 2020. But yeah, I mean, do we honestly believe that? Like, I mean, John Kirby's a lot better at the spin operation than Karine Jean-Pierre. That's why he's up there holding her up as a crutch to eat up minutes, kind of like baseball players in blowouts, relief pitchers to just eat innings. That's really what he's doing there. And yeah, nobody actually believes that. So for him to say, oh my gosh, that's really insulting, was kind of funny. And it was the first time that Peter Doocy really got under his skin. And John Kirby, you know, to his credit, has a reputation. He's pretty calm, and he's the one who should be press secretary, not affirmative action hire Karine Jean-Pierre. But still, that was an example of where it really was embarrassing to see him offer that answer. He's working through his illness.
But also, Joe Biden, just stop working. Yeah. Whether you're healthy or sick, don't do anything.
I know people who still could not get out of bed or even really have the energy to text people back while they were sick with COVID.
But also, Joe Biden, don't build back better. Just leave it the way you found it. Put it back the way you found it. Better yet. Trevor Noah using the killing of Zawahiri to highlight domestic terrorism. Listen to this garbage.
You know, when you see stories like this, when you see stories about what America is capable of, this is where you realize there's really no excuse for the amount of domestic terrorism in America, right? Because Zawahiri lived all the way in Afghanistan, right? In some random safe house in the middle of nowhere. And America knew what time of day he liked to go out onto his balcony. But when a white supremacist posts on Facebook that he's gonna murder everyone and then buys an AR-15, everyone's like, oh, there was no way to stop there.
Curtis, we're just gonna let you react to this one.
Well, you know, Trevor Noah is really struggling right now. He's getting destroyed in the ratings by Greg Gutfeld. And Jon Stewart's been in the news recently with his little charade on Capitol Hill, just smearing Republicans for pointing out a true budget gimmick in the burn pits legislation. So, you know, maybe that confluence of things is reminding him that, oh my gosh, the original guy, the guy that people actually liked, is still there and he's still got it. So what do I got to do? I got to come up with something really hot and crazy. So he comes
White
up
supremacy. Yeah. He pulls the white supremacy card.
Right, exactly. I mean, that was just utterly insane, just totally like out of nowhere. Again, when you're so desperate, when you have to play the race card on something completely unrelated, that's when you know, like, dude, like, what writers do you have? Like, none.
Yeah.
Curtis, we had sound from Bill Maher at the very top of the show this morning. Maybe Trevor knows to look at that because Bill Maher's been making some good headlines with what he's been saying.
Yeah.
Curtis, thanks for joining us this morning. And we're taking a look at Wildwood.
Writer for the Daily Caller, Kay Smythe. Okay, question today, folks, is do tax cuts incentivize growth? And if they do, why are we raising taxes during a recession? Ellis?
Smart ones do. I mean, you got to be careful. You don't want to do these giveaways to huge corporations that don't need them. But,
like
well-targeted, efficient tax cuts can be a useful tool. And yeah, you know, movie production and TV production is hugely important to the economy of California. I am so glad, by the way, that this bill includes this 15% minimum tax for these huge corporations. Do you have any idea some of the major corporations that are paying little or no taxes? Carl, Exxon, AIG, Archer Daniels Midland, Nike. I love Nike. I've got on a pair of $130 Nike Metcon sneakers right now. Carl, Nike, they paid virtually no income taxes last year. Let's make sure it's at least 15%.
Ooh, okay. So, Kay?
Yeah, great tangent there. So pleased that you're wearing wonderful sweatshop labor shoes. That sounds awesome, Ellis. So, Carl, here's the root of this issue. People aren't leaving California to go film in other states because of the tax incentive. They're leaving California to go and film in other states because California is an open-air prison camp and mental health asylum where basically nothing's being done to curb the more than 100,000 homeless people that live on the streets. Nothing's being done to curb the human trafficking that's going on in the streets, the drug trafficking, the rampant crime. People are leaving California because they don't like California anymore. And I know that $330 million sounds like an awful lot of money, but in the world of entertainment, it's just not. And I think it's also pretty funny that you bring up tax breaks for major corporations, where pretty much every single production that's going on that maybe originated in California, maybe was some brainchild of someone sat there on the Sunset Strip in Soho House thinking they're the most important person in the world because they work in the movies. But, you know, most of these films, most of these TV shows ultimately get made by these major corporations who, you're right, they don't need tax breaks. I actually agree. Every time I go to the shop around the corner here and someone says, do you want to round up to give to charity? No, because that's what your organization uses. So they can absolutely almost entirely mitigate any kind of tax that they're supposed to pay. So I think this is actually Gavin Newsom spinning yet another story saying, oh, you know, it's just awful. We don't want you to go and film in states where, you know, people are anti-abortion. You know, we don't want you to go film anywhere outside of California. Whereas like all of the best productions are happening outside of California right now for safety reasons.
Yeah, the funny thing was they moved all that stuff around and then they ended up producing movies out of Georgia anyway, where they alleged the voting the voting laws were too stringent. But Ellis, on the tax thing, okay, so we talked actually the other week, I don't know, last week or the week before, about the tax breaks for fuel producers. Would you be opposed to fuel, since the fuel is so high and it's so hard to produce it, are you opposed to tax cuts on fuel producers or?
Listen, here's the thing. Let's agree on two things. First of all these big companies ought to pay the same kind of taxes you and I and Kate pay, right? They shouldn't get away with these zero taxes or 1%. Microsoft, last year, they paid little or no taxes. I mean, that's just plain wrong. If I can get you guys to agree with that, right?
No, I completely agree.
Good. So why don't then I say tax cuts if they're, as I said at the beginning, if they're intelligent, if they're reasonable, and by the way, if we hold the companies to the things they promised to do. I'll give you an example. We use tax breaks all across America to encourage housing building in ghettos, in rough areas. We tell a developer, we'll cut your property taxes if you build in the hood. You know what? As long as they really do it, I think it's probably a good idea.
Yeah,
Alice, you're going to get in trouble for saying that. That's called gentrification. You're going to get in trouble. I'm so glad that you're coming around to our side, though.
So hold on. Actually, I found it kind of funny that it was coming from Ellis's mouth, actually. So
right?
No, we're in favor of that. Tax breaks can be an effective tool if they're not abused. That's what I'm saying.
So, Kay, I got about 15 seconds left. But I think corporations are just like people. Why should my corporation that makes money and then pays out salaries that are taxed on both sides, corporation and the individual, why should I have to pay taxes on that twice through my corporation?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. Well, I think look, I'm biased as heck, right? Like I'm a sole proprietor. Yeah. Everything I do, I try and write off as much. I'm a major hypocrite. Maybe Alice and I have switched sides in this debate and we've woken up on opposite day. I actually agree with Alice. I think that, if you are a major corporation, if you're a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and we're not talking about taxing the money that you pay out on salaries, what we're talking about is taxing your revenue. So after you've paid out everything to run your business, whatever your profit margin is after that, I think there should be a very small tax on it. Okay. I do think income tax is theft. Okay. I do.
Good. I think good. Smart, very smart.
I happen to think that taxes are the burden of evil for everything, but obviously you guys are more progressive on that than me. Ellis Hennigan, Kenzie, former Navy SEAL, New York attorney, and founder of Hudson River Swim, Bill Brown. So, guys, this was huge. I unfortunately did not make the swim. I went to my local pool and punished myself in the afternoon and made sure I swam the same distance.
It's not the same.
It's not the same. It was a nice warm pool. I got out. I had a margarita. It was great. But so you guys do this, and every year, and it's a big event. Talk to us about what it means and what the support you've been getting for it.
I tell you what it means to me. If we just anchored on the word sacrifice, that's really what came to mind yesterday as we were going through the first legs, getting in the water, that first mile and a half swim out to the barge, seeing Lady Liberty up there giving us
to come out, have a real tough event for a great cause. You're out there, you see Statue of Liberty, you see the Torch of Freedom right there, you see all these great American heroes, you got police officers, firefighters, you got guys who are swimming to honor their family members killed in 9/11. We got to hear a couple of them talk at the end. You're coming through with the World Trade Center, you're carrying American flags, holding them high with pride. And then guess what? You got the bagpipers playing for you. It is awe-inspiring. It's moving. It boosts me up because a lot of things happen in this country today, but yet we see great men like Shane out here representing and all our brothers coming together, and I love it. And there's one thing I could say, and one thing I'm blessed by your friendship, Shane's friendship, is we look out for each other. And it's one thing veterans need to do is we got to look out for each other. One thing, we all got to look out for each other.
That's an interesting thing. One of the hardest things guys do, they get out of the teams. We've been told for, whatever time we were in, for me it was 9 years, that look, you're the best there is, go get them, be here at this time and do this, kill bad guys, break their stuff, and we get out. And a lot of us, me included, we struggle. We're like, all right, what do we do now? Talk about how important that brotherhood is.
That important thing is everything. And I can tell you, one of the things I pray when a good brother of mine is in a struggle or needs some help, and I know it's a noble fight, I pray that no matter how weak I am, no matter how ill I am, I pray that I have the courage to step up and support him. And I don't care, and to be honest with you, you get guys getting canceled out there because they can't,